You get sick.
I barely made it.
Let's, you can go there.
All we're doing tonight is the two people we interviewed.
Right.
And they're not even.
They're virtual.
Oh, virtual. Let's go.
All right, y'all ready?
Thank you. Hereby call our Mounts County Board of Supervisors Workshop Meeting to order, February 23rd, 2021. Welcome all board members and staff that's in attendance. And at this time, let's have our Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll have our invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us pray. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, hallowed be thy name. Dear Lord, thank you for life itself. Thank you for all the blessings that you have rendered unto each of us. We thank you for our health. We thank you for so many things, dear Lord, that only through you is possible. We ask you to be with the members in our community that have this COVID, to be thy will, restore their health, and especially be with the ones that has lost loved ones through this COVID. Be with them. I ask you to be with us through this meeting. I ask this in Christ's name, amen. Ace, you ready? Mr. Fleet, can you see us?
I can see you. Can you see me okay?
Yeah, you got one eyebrow a little bit out of place. All right.
Is that better?
Yeah, there you go.
I hate these things.
I know it. All right, we're gonna turn the meeting over to you right now.
Okay.
Welcome.
Well, I appreciate you allowing me to speak before you tonight. Doesn't seem like it's been a whole year since I was before you last time asking for money, but here I am asking for money again. I hope you don't hold that against me. But if you have a copy of my summary report for the upcoming year's budget, I tried to be as austere as I could. The biggest expense that you probably are seeing on it is the part-time person that y'all graciously allowed me to hire. She has been a godsend. She has done an excellent job. I'll tell you, I don't know how Cindy's been doing it all these years without the extra help, but I'll be honest with you, we had some extra funds in part-time from when we lost our other part-time person in cost savings. So we had her come on full-time starting in December, and she's been full-time since that time. We had her come in full-time December and January so that she could get up and running and learn it. We had the extra money in the part-time fund, so that wasn't any problem. About 2 weeks or so ago, my office manager, Cindy Williamson, had a major health issue, and she has been out since then. With you, I'm not sure when she will be back full time. She is starting to pick up a little bit of work and working remotely in the areas that I know absolutely nothing about, which is basically coins and comp board, and she's been doing a little bit of with the budget as far as sending bills and invoices and things to Wanda. I've met with the county administrator. She's aware of the situation. She graciously has allowed me to call on her anytime I need assistance. I know Tippy and Wanda have both offered their services as far as if I need any help with the budget, with payroll. And I just want to sing their accolades. And I know that we're supposed to be talking about the budget, but I just want to say that the three of them have really gone above and beyond, and I thank them tremendously for that. But getting back to the part-time person, she is working every bit of 20 hours a week, even when we are going to cut her back. And we haven't even started with the input of our new software program because of COVID, because of the holidays, because of Cindy being out. We haven't had all the trainings on our software program, so that is not up and running yet. We've had the initial trainings. I'm having Brandy, our part-time person, begin to input some things to get comfortable and get used to it, but we're not up and running like it's designed to do and what we're hoping it's going to do for the office. So once that is up and running, her hours are going to be increased expeditiously, and I really could use her full time. We went to the comp board to see what the salary is for her position for full time, and it's a little over $26,000. And that's why you see the in that budget item increasing to $26,185. So basically what we're asking for is an increase of about $10,900. And to make up for that increase, I've decreased some of the other line item budgets so that when you add that along with a couple of minor increases in a couple of other line item budgets, an increase of $2,200 in the maintenance service contract line item. That is to add for the service contract we're going to have with our software company. That's going to be yearly $3,800 just to maintain that service. And then office supplies, I've asked for an increase of $1,500. We're getting a lot of documents sent to us by email, which means we have to print it off. The police reports and transcriptions and all that come to us through Zerker, which is what we wanted, we have to print off. And with the new discovery rules that have come down from the Supreme Court that have taken effect, we have to provide more documentation to defense attorneys. So unfortunately, our paper increases have gone through the roof. So I'm hoping the $1,500 increase will cover that. Those are the increases. They come out to about $14,000. Our decreases on light item for travel, for the meals and mileage, I've asked for a decrease of $900. I think I can live with $1,500. I'm not having staff travel as much. When I travel to special prosecute in other jurisdictions, I don't claim the mileage. That's in my book. That's just part of the job, and I don't get paid extra for that. For line item 5504, which is the education and the training, I'm only asking for $4,000. That's a decrease of $1,500. I can decrease that because our cost for that is considerably lower this year, and I might even be able to squeeze a little bit more out of that as the year goes on, because it's looking more and more like a lot of our CLE trainings that we have to mandatorily attend as attorneys are going to be remote. They're going to be over Zoom. So the cost of going to those in-person trainings has greatly decreased. line item 5801, dues and memberships. That's decreased by $400. I'm asking for 2,000, and that's for our bar dues. That's for our memberships in the National District Attorneys Association, and the other our Virginia Commonwealth's Attorneys Association, things of that nature. The biggest decrease is in the equipment. You'll see that in line item 7001, I've asked for a decrease of almost $9,500. We're not going to have a lot of the money that we were going to spend for like laptops so we could work remotely. That came out of a COVID grant that we received. So I was able to save money there. So when you look at the savings that I put forth in our budget, that's a savings of around $12,000. So actually, I'm only asking for an increase in the county budget for next year, in our office budget, I'm sorry, of $2,000. And like I said, that is ballpark. If you want it flat across the board, I probably could even cut a little bit more in some categories. And try to make it across the board so that we can convert that part-time person into a full-time position.
So, Mr. Fleet,
Yes, sir.
converting the part-time person over to full-time, executing the decreases that you have listed and all, the overall budget then is a $2,000 increase?
Yes, sir.
Is that what I hear?
Approximately $2,000. Yes, sir.
Okay. The board is open for Mr. Abbott.
Les, it's Watkins.
Yes, sir.
I was trying to follow you, and you talked about somebody who was part-time, and then you used other part-time money to make them full-time. Is that this position or another?
No, Watkins, what I did was you guys graciously gave the office $15,200, I believe, for part-time funds for the paralegal that we have. And because we had cost savings over the year when our former paralegal quit to go to law school, we had extra money so that we're paying that extra savings that we had. We've allowed her to work full-time over the last 3 months, almost 4 months. One, to get up and running, but also now to fill in for Cindy while she's out on medical leave. But I'm afraid that we're probably getting close to using up that 15,200. So I'm going to have to convert her back to part-time, which means we're really going to be hurting between now and the end of the fiscal year come June 30th.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, for Mike, in the making this position, part-time position, full-time less, are you including benefits in it? Because when you make it full-time, benefits, and for $26,000, benefits would be around $8,000.
Yes, sir. What I could do is that's the comp board salary. Since she would be a local salary, I can come down in the salary. I'd like to keep it right around 23, 24,000 if I could. And that was not in putting in the benefits. Now I will say this. Brandy is the wife of a special agent with the Virginia State Police. I know that you have to offer the medical, but she would not be taking advantage of that because she is on her husband's medical through the state police. So basically, all that would be coming out of her, I guess, would be the taxes, the FICA, Social Security, things like that, and the retirement.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions from any member?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hinkle.
I don't have a question, but I'd like to compliment the Commonwealth Attorney on his willingness to look for bill payers in other area of his budget rather than just come out and flat ask for money. That shows good budget workmanship on his part.
I appreciate that, Mr. Hinkle.
Mr. Hogan.
Les, this is Bill.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned an increase in the office supply line item because of the added expense of, I know you've got some additional disclosure requirements for defense counsel and things like that now. You said you had to print it all. Could you just email that to those defense attorneys and make them print it?
Yes, and in fact, we're doing that when we can. And it's not just printing documents. Any copies that we have to make of say, interviews and things of that nature.
Sure.
Because of the way our email is set up, it won't allow me to email those. So I've got to copy those over onto CDs or onto flash drives. And as you well know, I mean, the cost of those things are going through the roof. But the biggest expense is before the sheriff's department would print off all the documents and everything and bring us copies, which we appreciated. But with the Zerker, we now have access to that. And so we're printing all those documents and everything off. So, our expense in that regards has gone through the roof.
Okay. And just to follow up, so, I was just trying to figure out if we could pass on some of those costs to the defense counsel, and let's let them pay
I
for it.
don't have any problem with that.
But the other question I had was, what's with the COVID, I know courts were closed for quite a while back in the spring. And, what's your case volume like now this year compared to last year or previous years, and what you expect it to be next year?
I'm seeing an increase in cases, in maybe because people are starting to venture out again. But I'll be honest with you, certain crimes decreased during COVID. Certain crimes, there was an uptick. Domestics, child abuse, there was an uptick in those. Obviously, the drugs are there. And in fact, there's been an increase in both drug distributions and possession cases. That the property crimes seem to be down a little bit, which is good for us that are property owners. But I'm seeing an uptick in that. You probably have read about the individuals that were going around stealing all the catalytic converters. Well, Appomattox was unfortunately part of the victims as far as that. So cases as far as courts, things were kind of slow for a while, but because cases were continued, we're starting to see our dockets really fill up quick. We've been approved for jury trials now. In fact, we just had a jury trial a couple of weeks ago, and we've got four more jury trials scheduled between now and May. So I do see our caseload going up, and that's unfortunate, but I guess that's just part of the business.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, if I could follow up.
Thank you. Yes,
So you mentioned jury trials. So I know
Yes,
this is
sir.
going to be an issue coming up everywhere because the legislature has decided that they don't want juries handing out sentences anymore. So defendants are more than likely going to take their chances with a judge, which is going to mean more judge trials, which is going to mean more work for your office and more backlog on the caseload. So is that going to contribute to part of the reason why you need this person to be full-time?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I see our workload going up for next year. I really do.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Well, Mr. Fleet, it was nice to see you on, what do you call it?
Well, it was my pleasure in meeting with you. I like I said, I hate these things. I like more eyeball to eyeball. Plus, it makes me look like I'm losing more hair than what I am. It's thinning off. And I see Brad, he's laughing, so he's probably going to be up next.
Yeah.
But I thank you for your time and your attention to this.
Yes, sir. Thank you, and thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay. You said, Ace, you got Brad up there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, everybody.
You can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Well, Mr. Chairman and members of the Board of Supervisors, let me first say thank you for allowing me to come in to the virtual space and to talk to you tonight about our request for some additional funds for Appomattox Department of Social Services. And I will try to be as brief as I can, just to give the board a little bit of education on the Department of Social Services. We are a mixed bag of different federal and state benefit and service programs. And currently we administer over 20 programs that are federally and state funded. And those programs range from Medicaid services for senior citizens who are in need of nursing home or community-based care to child protective services for children who are in need of protective services. So, and we deal with all citizens from across all demographics and across all socioeconomic statuses. So, and, you know, and as Susan probably can tell you, we probably have one of the most complex budgets, I think, of any the local department because of the blended funding that we have. So, just to give the board an idea of the programs that we administer, we actually generate real dollars into the local economy. So, you know, just in our Medicaid program alone, we generated about $37 million last year in Medicaid spending. That is not dollars that is going to citizens. That's dollars that's going to hospitals, that's going to our local doctors, our local physicians, counselors, our home health providers. In relation to our SNAP program, we generated over $3 million in SNAP. That is real dollars that is going to our local grocery stores and our local vendors that accept SNAP payments. So, and I will share with the board that the benefits have only increased as we have gone further into this public health emergency due to COVID-19. So, and I just wanted to share with the board those numbers because those are real tangible dollars that are generated locally in our economy. And of that local share, at least last year, I think the local portion was, I think, allocated at about $272,000. And so we, you know, we are requesting a funding increase. We are in need of additional staff to support our Family First Prevention Act. Family First Prevention was a piece of federal legislation. Actually, the state of Virginia had put it on hold in terms of its implementation due to the public health emergency. It will become effective July 1, meaning all local departments of social services will have to follow the mandates of Family First. And it's going to require a major shift in the way that we how our service staff responds to Child Protective Services complaints, and especially those cases that are marked for ongoing prevention services. So, and the change in the legislation is going to require us to reduce caseload size because it's going to require more staff time. It's going to require, additional case management, additional service planning, and in essence, the legislation, at least in theory, is supposed to reduce the number of children coming into care. But I don't think we would see any of that won't be realized probably for a couple of years. This is a piece of legislation that is hinging on the Title IV-E funding, which is part of the Social Security Administration. So I think it'll be a while before we actually see those costs realized, at least on a state level. Nevertheless, the responsibility for us as a department to implement those facets of Family First Prevention Act, we are mandated. So we were working on securing at least some additional building space before the public health emergency, and with the implementation of the Family First Act, we have to have additional space. The mandates of the program is requiring us to have space to be able to conduct meetings, to hold family partnership meetings, our team staffing meetings, and other case management functions that we're going to have to in response to that. So, and a lot of pieces of this, federal mandate, for at least for us as a department, are not negotiable. I mean, we'll have to figure out a way to comply with those mandates, because we don't want any chargebacks to us or to us as a locality, because we're not able to meet the critical decision points that at least legislation is putting in place. And we have also had additional costs to, as we've moved our workforce to working remotely in response to the public health emergency. This change has resulted in increased costs for us for internet, cell phone, and other technology to support our remote workforce. And I will share with the board, because these are federal and state programs, and we handle federal tax information. We are not allowed as an entity to use, or at least staff is not allowed to use their personal phones or personal home phones. So we've had to supply them with cell phones, as well as secure internet hotspots for them to be able to work on the state programs. The state programs the state software that we have, actually requires a great deal of bandwidth. So we have actually used a couple of internet providers, because we have some staff that are working remotely that have better service with different service providers. So it's been a chore as we've sort of moved into this working remotely. So, and I will share with the board that our caseloads actually have only increased as we have waxed and waned in this public health emergency. And like Les was saying, the severity of at least our child abuse and neglect cases have actually become a lot more severe. We're seeing a lot more families that are under a tremendous amount of stress due to job loss, due to juggling school, childcare responsibilities. So what we are requesting is an increase, at least in our, which would be our 855 and 858 staff and operations pass through budget line, which is about $16,000 that we're requesting, which would be in a above what we requested, or at least requested last year. So, and overall, I mean, as far as the county, the local share, as you can see, we have close to about a $2 million budget, and of that, I think it's about maybe a 2% share, at least on the county's end, in terms of supporting that budget. A good portion of that comes from our federal and state programs that we administer. So, so we've got a lot going on here, but I think you know, and just some of the things that we have in terms of our programs that we administer, we do have some waivers and other things that have been implemented in some of our programs. I think as we come out of the public health emergency, as those waivers go away, the workload for our workers are going to increase. Right now, some of our programs, due to COVID, we're able to waive an in-person interview. But once we come out of that public health emergency, we may have to go back to interviewing individuals either over the telephone or in person, at least in our eligibility program. So with what we do, there's a lot of unknowns because it's some of those things are dependent upon what happens at the federal and state level. You know, and as the federal government makes changes to Medicaid, to SNAP, to we have to respond to those changes. So I wouldn't dare promise our board anything, knowing that it very well may change six months from now. So, but at least this is what I can see on the horizon as far as our needs are and what to respond to. And I know the legislation that is going to be upon us on July 1. So I'm sure the board has some questions. So.
Any questions from anyone?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Hinkle?
Oops.
Oh, excuse me, Mr. Hips.
What actual numbers are you talking about as far as the caseload changes?
Well, we have about 20 different programs. So, I mean, I'll be glad to get you those stats.
You're talking across the board then?
Across the board, our caseloads have gone up tremendously. Our Medicaid numbers probably have gone up probably about 300 or 400 cases, as well as SNAP. There's some legislation, I think, in the General Assembly right now that could have big impacts to our SNAP program, which would sort of give some broad-based category eligibility to SNAP recipients. That in doing that, it would allow for that. Essentially, they would be raising the poverty threshold, so that could put more people eligible for SNAP. If they increase that eligibility, so it could run in concert with Medicaid eligibility. So if they were to do that, then that means we're going to have additional clients that could come on our rolls for SNAP. And you know, those cases, if there are families and children or Medicaid, I mean, all of those cases require time to process. So, and as well as changes and all of those things. So it's a lot.
Yeah. How are you, just out of curiosity, how are you doing your staffing in the building with regard to, you know, who's remote and who's not? Are you rotating that or?
Right now, our eligibility staff is working fully remote. We're not able to because of the service programs as far as CPS, Adult Protective Services. They still have a responsibility to meet with clients and especially with kids to assess their safety. So they're still seeing clients face to face. So we're trying to, most of those meetings are actually occurring here in the office. and our service staff is working remotely when they can. But we have a good chunk of service staff that are still coming in and out of the building. But for right now, because we had a lot of staff sharing offices, so due to the temporary emergency procedures that were put in place by the state of Virginia, it was not feasible for us in terms of staff sharing offices to maintain that 6 feet of space. So we want to be in compliance with the regulations. So we put those staff on everybody working remote, at least on the eligibility side.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Hogan?
Hey, Brad, it's Bill. You mentioned the Family First Prevention law that was passed by the General Assembly mandating certain things, but did they provide any money at all for these this new work you're going to have to do?
They did provide. I think we are allotted. I think close to about $55,000, but that's to cover a staff person. But I'll be honest with you, for what they're requiring and the change to how we are currently conducting our child protective services and our prevention and our ongoing work, you really are going to need 3 or 4 staff to be able to really pull this off. I mean, it's great. I mean, I'm sure like you all know, I mean, legislation is great on paper, but putting it, into real operation becomes a challenge, especially for us as a local department.
In your package, you said that some of these positions that you have working remotely now, that you're going to shift some of those to a permanent remote status. Will that continue after COVID passes? Do you anticipate those folks working from home still?
I anticipate those folks working from home still because of the Family First, the mandates that are sort of in there with that particular program. It's going to require an increased amount of time on our services staff. So they're going to need space to be able to meet with these families. They're going to need space to conduct the family partnership meetings. All of those things are going to be required due to Family First. Right now, and I think we had shared with the board before, we were already in a space crunch. So I'm really trying to utilize this opportunity that we have with the public health emergency to our benefit, because this is this did force us to begin to work remotely. And I think what at least state VDSS has seen is that as a system, we are able to do it. And so we want to harness, that momentum going forward and really build this out. It will alleviate us in terms of trying to juggle in the county where to find space to conduct these meetings. I mean, sometimes we're at CVCC, we were at the library, we no longer have meetings there. We were at other places. These meetings can be contentious at times. You're dealing with some serious family situations. They can get heated. They can get a little loud. So, if we have them here in the department where we're sort of equipped to be able to deal with that, I think it's a little bit better. It's a neutral place, and then we don't have staff trying to figure out space in the community to be able to conduct those meetings. So,
okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Well, thank you, Brad, for coming and talking about your department. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you all so much, and I hope y'all have a good evening.
You too. Ms. Adams.
Yes, sir. Are there any questions relative to both of those presentations that I may can address, or
I had the, I mean, are we recorded or what? We still need to use these? Okay. Yeah, I had the same question as Mr. Abbott about the additional costs associated with full-time employee with Les's department. So what was the
One thing,
actual there?
when we met and talked about it, Mr. Cleet and myself, I explained to him because it's a full-time position, whether that employee chooses to accept insurance or not, we have to budget it, because if they were to leave employment, we still have to have money in the budget in case he hires someone else, and that's happened a lot with the deputies. You know, we have some years, we have 3 that don't accept insurance, and then the next year, because it's in the budget, we don't have an increase because we already have it budgeted in there for the new employee. It looks like it's gonna be about $21,000 would be the increase. And that's 10,800 in salary from 15.2 to 26. And FICA would be an increase of $826. We currently do not pay BRS life and health insurance on that position, so that would be about $11,000 for those benefits. So you're looking at an increase of about $21,000. I did just find out from Ms. Luckady, I texted her and she addressed my question. I asked what that employee was currently making hourly rate, and it's $15 per hour. And when I was sitting here, I thought, you know, there's an alternative that if you want to try it this year and see if it works, and then consider full-time next year, because we don't know the situation with his current full-time employee as to her health conditions.
Right.
But, their office currently works 35 hours per week. And a part-time person can work up, 29 hours per week without benefits. So we're only talking about 6 hours per week difference in that person being able to assist them for benefits.
What? Is it 35 hours based on a lunch break? Is that what that, an hour per day or something? Or-
Well, and yeah, it's an hour lunch break, and plus their operating hours are 8:30 to 4:30. And so you may want to consider increasing the part-time funding so that he can at least bring that employee in to the max to get over, you know, over the hump, because we don't know how long his full-time employee will be out. So that's an alternative if you wanted to increase that position, the part-time hours to the max.
How many hours is she working now?
Well,
35.
he said right now he was having to utilize her full-time, but that can only be for a period of time.
That's because the other employee is out.
It's 1,500 hours per year that they can work, so he didn't hire this position until maybe November. That position was not hired, and that's what he was talking about, that he could utilize those funds, the cost savings from July until he hired the person. So that's why he's able to work them more hours per week now. But he's still within his budget, but he's not sure how long he's gonna remain within that because of the current situation.
Question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr.
You're
Hagan.
not expecting us to move on this tonight?
No, I think the question presented itself about what we were talking about, if that were a full-time position.
Anything else?
And if you wanna look at your budget sheet, if it's helpful, what Brad was talking about, under social services, the state increased their funding $159,852. And what he's asking is the difference would be the local funding is $16,117. So I wanted to provide clarification on that.
That's 16, that's above and beyond what we normally give them.
Yes, yes.
They
It's
would,
a difference in the funding from last year to this year of just the local funds.
Yes.
The state did increase their budget a much higher number, but that's all state funded. It's almost 160,000.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr.
So if my math is right, basically, he's asking for about a 6% increase in local funding to cover these other unfunded mandates, basically. Okay.
And that is the staff and operations in his line item. So if he has to state hasn't approved your funds, then it does have to come out of that line item.
I just make Mr. Chairman, I might make an observation. And he said they have 20 programs, all federal and state. And it looks like to me, if they're coming down, then they need to come down with the funds for it. You can nickel, you put 16,000 on this year, that's on every year from now on, not counting what comes next year.
Right.
We had talked, he said they'd looked and need space. We had talked to one time and looked seriously at moving to Thomasville. And we never got the figures of what the state would pay. At the initial look at it, it was a good deal for us. But if he has to look at other areas, have to expand his office, do we pay for that, or does he have funds to do that? I don't know. I would tell you, and I'm not advocating it, but if we had to pay for it, they make single wide for his department, set up just the way the department, you could put it right behind his office every time if you had to. I'm not saying do that, but it's way of a one-time spending versus something that's, you're going somewhere and renting and doing it every year. There are some things to look at. So
You're right.
if we pick up on what the state should be doing or the federal should be doing, this budget will go through the roof. At least not this year, maybe it'll be next year, the year afterwards.
Yeah.
But I think the problem is, with the state, there's so many things that are eligible and so many things that aren't eligible when you do construction, and they stretch it over a 30-year period, so it's over an annual payment. They don't offer upfront funds.
Well, we never got the price. We never got what they
No,
would
we
pay.
never did, because we didn't know what was eligible and what wasn't, and they didn't either, unfortunately, at that time.
Anything else? Mr. Abbott?
Mr. Chairman, I move we rise.
Right.
He's got it.
Oh, excuse me.
Oh, I withdraw my motion.
Mr. Chairman, I got a question for Ms. Adams, if I may.
Yes, sir.
On the registrar's office, I was curious about the grant that they got. I've heard that it was from the Mark Zutenberg Foundation or something like that, and did we ever see that grant and review it and see what the application requires and, you know, what was required of the register if they accepted the money? Did we ever, I think,
Not really, it was a one-page, it was like a one-page application or something they had to complete that they submitted, and some of the questions we presented, we really didn't get definitive answers on those.
well, would I or somebody need to submit a FOIA request to the registrar's office to get a copy of the grant announcement, the grant application, and or is that something that you could request as county?
We can request that, yeah.
And what are the requirements of the grant, if you accept it? Now, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Abbott.
Mr. Chairman, I move we rise.